Thanks, Marie, for listening in. Hey, speaking of Liverpool, I know a guy in Liverpool named Kevin Roach, and he just wrote a Beatles book along with his partner on that project, John Gannon, and it's called The Beatles Living in the Eye of the Hurricane. And guess what? He's on the phone right now from Liverpool, England. It must be about 12:30 a.m. there. Let me switch gears here and go over to the phone to talk to Kevin. Hello, Mr. Roach. How are you?
Hello, BeatleEdd. Nice to hear your voice again.
It is great to hear that Scouser accent here tonight in northeastern Pennsylvania.
I believe the weather's a bit snowy over there at the moment.
Well, actually, we're in for a heat wave right now. We're going up to 32 degrees tomorrow. That's good.
We've been. So you never got as bad as the East Coast, New York.
No, we've been very lucky here this year. Very lucky. Well, Kevin, you've got a book coming out. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I know it's a couple days late from the printer. It's called The Beatles Living in the Eye of the Hurricane. Tell us, my friend, what's going on with that book? What do you got there?
Well, what we've got, first of all, it's just a limited edition run. The first edition is just a limited edition run of 500 copies. And the reason we've done it as a 500-copy limited edition is to try and give the true Beatles fans the chance to get hold of a limited edition book. Because, as you know now, books today, when you're buying limited editions, the price is extortionate.
Absolutely.
So this one's reasonably priced. We've priced it at, in English sterling money, it's £19.64.
Now,
which is easy to
Kevin, tell me and our listeners.
The book itself, it starts off with a letter that Brian Epstein sent to the Lord Mayor of Liverpool on the 6th of February 1964, explaining that the boys was going to America the first time, and that was the inspiration behind the book, just following on from Brian Epstein's letter.
Now, Kevin, what does this book have that makes it different than all those other Beatle books out there? This is a chance to really blow your horn here.
What it has that makes it different is it's all the archived correspondence, it's all the letters between Brian Epstein and also the Lord Mayor and the Beatles people at the time, Tony Barrow. So it's everything from behind the scenes of the Beatles going to America, all the organisation of the Beatles going to America. So it's all archived documentation with original letters.
Well, that certainly is different. You've certainly cornered the market on that piece. What was the greatest challenge in getting this book done?
The greatest challenge was, unfortunately, that was left to my co-author, John Gannon. The greatest challenge was to try and pinpoint where the Beatles was at the time. Because we've got the archived documentation of saying the Beatles are going to be here, they're going to be there. The next challenge was, well, what was they doing there? Why was they there? Why did they go to America? How did they get to America? What started the ball rolling? That was the biggest challenge, was to try and follow the timeline.
Very good. Now I can't wait to see it, because I saw your first book. In fact, we're going to give that away on the air here tonight. The first book was meticulously done, titled The McCartneys in the Town Where They Were Born. Your first book, very successful. I want you to tell our listeners how you pitched that book to Paul McCartney at an art gallery with the Queen of England a few feet away from you. That was quite a challenge there.
It was just an opportunity, really. I was at a function. It stemmed from my daughter, was invited to the Walker Art Gallery to exhibit some of her artwork, and she was only 16 at the time. And me and her mother was there at the time. Also there was Paul McCartney, who was exhibiting his artwork himself, the Paul McCartney art collection, and the Queen of England was there as well. She was doing a tour of the country, and she was in Liverpool at the same time. So it was just an opportunity, while Paul was there, to just mention to him about his family history, and I know people have done a lot of research into it, but they get the research wrong at times. So what I decided to do, I thought, well, I'll speak to him briefly about it, see what he thinks. And Paul just said briefly, he says, I don't think he really thought I meant it. He just said, yeah, go ahead with it, but deal with our kid, which is Mike McCartney. So I contacted Mike, and that started the ball rolling.
Yeah, Mike McGear, as he was known way back in the 60s, who changed his name so he could get some credit in the world by not being a McCartney.
That's right, and that's explained in the book as well. How Mike felt like he was living under the shadow of the Beatles banner, and he wanted to break out on his own, so he changed his name to Mike McGear. when he was with the Scaffold.
Now, I know you did a lot of work with Mike McCartney as the middleman between you and Paul, and then Paul dealt with his brother. Now, how difficult was it? And because I know content was a factor in what goes in the book, what does not. How difficult was it negotiating with the former Beatle McCartney?
It wasn't very difficult at all. He was really supportive, and Mike was really supportive. The way we worked it out was I'd contact Mike either by telephone or email electronically and say, I've come across this. Do you want this in, or do you want this out, or do you want to elaborate on it? And 9 out of 10 times, they just approved it and said yeah, and they was so pleased to see the actual archive that was coming up that they was willing to add information to it as well.
Oh, it's a beautiful book. Now, you've been involved in several BBC radio projects over across the pond. You did a Cavern Club program that went across the UK. You were involved in a program called Another Hard Day's Night. You even did research for Martin Scorsese on the George Harrison film Living in a Material World. Tell us briefly about those projects.
Well, the first one that you touched on there was the Cavern program. And that was relating to, it was the 50th anniversary of the opening of the Cavern, rather than the Beatles, which has just been celebrated this week. They've just celebrated their 50th anniversary of appearing at the Cavern.
Mm-hmm.
So the Cavern programme was about the history and also the change in style of music and the change in ownership. So it started off as a jazz club, and then from a jazz club it went on to a skiffle groups playing there, which led on to then the major beat scene. So the Cavern programme was about the progress of the Cavern Club through the music scene.
Yeah. Now, what was and what was Another Hard Day's Night? What project was that?
Another Hard Day's Night. It was related to this new book that's coming out, The Beatles in the Eye of the Hurricane. Because we did an exhibition with all this archive material in the Central Library in Liverpool, where I work as a researcher. And the exhibition opened up in 2008 for the European Capital of Culture year. And it was worldwide visitors, worldwide attention, so that was a big scoop for the Liverpool Library at the time.
Sure. And then you worked with Martin Scorsese.
That's correct. I haven't dealt with Martin directly. I've just dealt with his production company.
Yeah. What is the latest on that, if you know, Kevin? I heard about that film, but then it kind of disappeared. Is it completed? Is it near completion?
It is completed, and he went to France to the Cannes Film Festival with it. And he showed it there, so it's just waiting now for general release. It's all completed. Everyone from the Beatle world has contributed to it,
Very
and
good.
also the research as well. They've contributed to the research, and what my part was dealing with George's family history, because I've done the McCartney book, and they'd got hold of the McCartney book. My research was to do the early history of George Harrison.
And you're working on that as your next book, correct?
That's correct. That's coming out later in the year. So I've been in touch with Lou Harrison.
Yeah, she'll be on our show live 2 weeks from tonight.
That's right. I was speaking to her about your show. She's looking forward to it.
Very good. I like when there's scuttlebutt about this show amongst Beatle people.
But she's doing her own memoirs at the moment. So when I contacted her, it was just a case of just getting our heads together and seeing which way we can go about it.
She's a wonderful lady. I already told her, put me down for a copy, for sure. You know?
Yeah. Well, when we were doing the research into this book, the Eye of the Hurricane, we come across a letter that Brian Epstein sent to Lou Harrison, because the Beatles wasn't going down well at all in the States in 1963. And in fact, George Harrison and his brother Peter went to stay with Lou in 63.
Right.
And they went round, a few records stopped asking for the Beatles records, and nobody had heard of them. And that was in July 1963. And Beatlemania was well in advance in the UK at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. You had a good 6 to 8 month jump on us here in the States.
Yeah, I think George was surprised when he went over there and said he'd never heard of us.
Yeah. Yeah, that put a little nervousness on that plane coming over in February, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that was why John Lennon and Paul McCartney insisted that they're not going there till they get the #1 single, which was I Want to Hold Your Hand. But up to that point, the book, the Eye of the Hurricane book, it talks about that and all the build-up to that, like the hits with the records that they give to VJ Records and Swan Records, that never did anything at all, really, in late 63.
Yeah, I still have my VJ album yet. It's a relic now, but I still have it.
I hope it's still in good condition, or is it?
Well, it's kind of beat up, like the host of this show. Well, now, listen, Kevin, this is a great book, but it's not quite out yet, Living in the Hurricane. So what we're going to do tonight, I already have the first book, the McCartney book, entitled again, The McCartneys in the Town That They Were Born. So we're going to give that away here tonight. But first, tell us, how do listeners get these books? Do a little pitch here for yourself. How do you get them?
Well, what you can do, you can go onto our website. We have got a website, and it's the website, if anyone's got a pen and paper handy, we can repeat it again in a few seconds. But the website is www.BeatlesLiverpoolAndMore.com. BeatlesLiverpoolAndMore.com. Yeah, if you go onto that website, that'll just give you the link straight into the Paul McCartney book, and also the new book, The Beatles in the Eye of the Hurricane. The Paul McCartney book's been out now for 12 months, so that's available on Amazon as well. So if you go onto Amazon, you can pick it up that one up off Amazon. Yeah, and I said it earlier, I was so impressed with the McCartney book, I can't wait to get my hands on Living in the Eye of the Hurricane. So here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do, Kevin. Here's the question we're going to put out to our listeners tonight, because some lucky listener is going to win this beautiful McCartney book. Here's the question. Well, here's the scenario leading up to the question. On Wednesday of this week was the 50th anniversary of the Beatles first playing at the Cavern Club in Liverpool. In fact, you just mentioned it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wednesday was the 50th anniversary. So the question is, and it's not exactly a brain teaser, what was the date of their first appearance at the Cavern Club? It's just a matter of simple math, right? It is, yeah. Well, I won't give it away. That's right. We don't make the questions too hard on this show. Now, call us. We're going to tell our listeners, once Kevin has hung up and he's back in Liverpool, we're going to take the first 5 callers who can give us the date that the Beatles first played at the Cavern in Liverpool. Again, 50th anniversary was 2 days ago. Yeah. All right? So and then we're going to take the first 5 callers, and then we're going to pick a name out of the hat, and that lucky person will win your first book, The McCartneys in the Town Where They Were Born. Now, our number for that, for the listeners who are out there, here's the number, 570-208-5821. I will repeat that, 570-208-5821. As soon as the music starts, you can start calling. Now, Kevin, I want to thank you very, very much for being a special guest on this show. I enjoyed meeting with you a couple months ago up in Connecticut. I think you and Mr. Gannon are onto something really hot here. I wish you the best of luck down the road, and you keep us posted at all times on all your projects. Yeah, will do. And like I say, it's already been reviewed by family members, the Beatles family members, and they've contributed as well. And also Larry Kane from Philadelphia. Yes, Larry Kane, yeah. Yeah, he's had a look at it as well, and he's contributed. Yeah, he's down with KYW in Philadelphia. That's right. He was the only, I think he was the only reporter at the time to go with them in 1960. That's right, the only U.S. reporter to be on the plane with them and on the first tour, for our listeners who don't know that. Yeah, so he's contributed as well, so he's had really good reviews from people who've seen it. Yeah, and he's a real gentleman, too, another nice guy. Okay. I was speaking with him about 2 weeks, so it was a lovely chap. Okay, Kevin, I would like you to choose a song that best emulates a hurricane from the Beatles catalog. What Beatles song would you pick that has the energy of a hurricane that ties in with the book, The Beatles Living in the Eye of the Hurricane? Well, there's so much out there, as you know, Ed. I'll be quick, but there's so much out there, and I've decided that it's a flip side, it's a B-side of Matchbox, and it's called Slow Down. You know, I've heard of that song. I have heard of that. Kevin, I want to thank you again. We'll be talking real soon. You stay warm there in Liverpool, England.